We're going to call the meeting to order for the Audit Committee on May 17th of 2018, and Ms. Hasty is going to do our roll call.
Madam Chairperson, you have 4 members in attendance, 1 absent.
Next item on the agenda is the setting of the agenda.
Let's do the emergency.
Okay, hold on. We're going to do the emergency
Before we get
evacuation
started, let me
procedures
read
first.
the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you have reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles.
Now we are ready to have the setting of the agenda. Do I have a motion to set the agenda?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Just a second. Okay, ready to vote?
Yes. Everybody vote, please, electronically.
Madam Chairperson, you have 4 yes votes.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the last meeting of the Audit Committee. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
If everyone would please vote.
Madam Chairperson, you have 4 yes votes.
The next item on the agenda is if we have any public input at this time. There being no one here to offer any public input, we will go back to presentation from Ingram, Overholt, and Bean of the 9/11 audit.
Thank you. My name is Mark Lund. I'm a partner. Karen and I are both partners with Ingram, Overholt, and Bean, and we appreciate the invitation to be with you here today to present the 2 audit reports. I actually was the auditor in charge of the Emergency Communication District and did that audit. Just briefly go through the opinions and a few financial highlights, and then if there are any questions or any comments, I'll try to address those. The opinion is a few pages back in the report. It's on our letterhead, and the opinion is actually the last paragraph. And we issued an unmodified opinion that means that our audit procedures, we feel like the financial statements fairly reflect the position and the operations of the Emergency Communication District for the year ended June 30th, 2017. The other report that we issue is in the back of the report. It's the report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance issues. Although we don't give an opinion on these, our audit procedures did not reveal any internal control issues or non-compliance matters that we needed to make note of in the report. So those are 2 both good opinions, good reports for the Communication District. I'll go back to page, didn't put my sticky on that one. Page 9 is the statement of financial position, which in the business world is what you would refer to as the balance sheet. The total current assets of the district at June 30th, 2017 was $1.9 million. That was up from $1.6 million the previous year. And you can see the changes primarily with in the area of cash. Capital assets decreased from $3.7 million to $3.5 million, and that's primarily as a result of the depreciation claim during the year. There was, I think, maybe $10,000 or $11,000 of additional equipment assets that were placed in service during the year, but the main transaction through that account was the accumulated depreciation. Liabilities, the current liabilities, there was a small increase there from $158 million to $158,000 to $180,000, primarily in the area of accounts payable and the accrued payroll and related benefits at the end of the year. Total debt stayed fairly consistent. Actually, the bank notes and capital or the capital lease obligations went down. The post-employment benefits and the net pension obligation, those liabilities increased during the year. Overall, the net position of the district increased from $3.6 million to $3.9 million, which is a pretty healthy increase. That's $239,000. The next page, page 10, is the statement of revenues and expenses and changes in position. Slight increase in the revenues from the state of Tennessee. They went from $1.4 million to $1.5 million. Expenses did increase more than the revenues. They were $1.9 million to $2 million. Some of that had to do with the interim change between the two directors. You had the two directors on the payroll there for a few months while they were converting over, as Jimmy taking over as the director. So that accounted for the increase in the salaries. And then the other increase was just the benefits, health insurance, the pension benefits. That was another major increase. Overall, though, the utility or the district increased in $239,000, as I said before, in their position over last year. The rest of the reports are just back up on basically these 2 pages. A lot of good information there to read in the notes and also in the management's discussion and analysis. I'm not going to go through those page by page, but if you do have any questions or comments, I'll try to answer those at this time.
Okay, before I open it up for questions, I want to do what I always do at our meetings and just remind the committee that what we're called to do as a committee is to evaluate independence, completeness, and the competence of the staff that work on the audits. And so I'll go ahead now after that reminder and open it up for questions from the committee.
I've just got a couple. Who does the bookkeeping for 911? Do they have their own bookkeeper, accounting person, or does the county do it, or they form? Who does their bookkeeping?
We actually process their payroll and their payables. They code everything, they approve everything. We just process their data.
Okay, so you all do the bookkeeping
Right.
per se. You don't have any check signing authority?
No, we do not.
Okay. Second question. Do they require more than one signature on checks?
Yes. I think the Judge Brewer is one of the signatures, and then also Jimmy, or the director, signs the checks.
That's not correct. Chief Long, or Chief Chris, is the treasurer sign.
Oh, sign, that's right. Yeah, right.
We do get 2 signatures on all checks, correct?
Right.
And we're not using signature stamps, right?
No, that's correct. They're original
Real
signatures.
signatures. And, okay, so internally, they don't have an accounting
No.
per se?
Per se.
Who does the bank recs and those things?
We do.
Okay. I'm good, thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Do I have more questions from the committee? Ron? Okay, I have a couple of questions. One of them, Lee asked, and that was who did the bookkeeping. Are any of the people that do the bookkeeping do any kind of work on the audit reports at all?
No, they do not.
Completely separate?
Separated.
How many people work on this audit for 911? I know you guys do a lot of the different audits for the different component units.
Right. I do the field work and most of the audit procedures. Karen's involved in the planning and the review.
Okay. Do you ever have any ability to rotate staff at all?
Yeah, we do. We've got several auditors, right.
Okay. Do you know how many right off that you have? that you can
Let's
rotate?
see, there's 5 of us. 5.
Okay. And how many years has IOB done the 911 audit?
Karen, do you know? It's been several years, many years.
And then I'll go ahead while we're on this topic too, just to remind the committee too also that they had a clean peer review that IOB did, that Karen sent that to us when we looked over the school board audits, and that was in 2015 if I'm correct, and the next one's due October 31st of 2018.
Right, we're scheduled for that this fall.
Yes, and Karen also, you guys still do peer review for other firms quite extensively as well. Is that still an accurate statement? Okay, I have no other questions at this time either. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, now we'll turn it over to Karen to come up and present the Public Building Authority audit.
I'm Karen Edwards. I'm also a partner at Ingram over Holton Bean. And this audit will be a little bit shorter than Mark's because they haven't been operating since about 2009.
Ma'am, could you pull the microphone down just a little bit? Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
I don't want to blow you out of here.
That's okay.
I'm getting older in my ears.
I know
They
that
never
feel.
were very good.
As Mark has said, we have reports in the front and in the back. In the front is our audit opinion, and they have gotten a clean opinion. We had no findings in the back. We don't give an opinion on it, but we didn't find anything. The Public Building Authority, they receive money from all the bonds that they've issued, which was about $1,860,000,000 at one time. It's now down to an outstanding balance of $578 million. And that's one reason the building authority has to continue until all those bonds are retired. A lot of the cities that have borrowed from them have refinanced, so, because the bonds are down quite a bit. But it'll keep going. Their average each year is they're collecting about $20,000 in fees for these bonds that they've issued. And they pay us to do their audit, insurance. They have a non-paid board. And last year, they turned over $100,000 to the county. Anytime they have excess funds, they're required to do that. On page 6 of the report, it gives the fund financial statements and the statement of financial position. Basically, theirs is cash and what is receivable from the county for debt and what is payable for debt. And the next page page 7 shows the operations of the various funds, the general fund, the loan fund, the bond fund. But there's really been little activity over the past few years other than collecting fees from the bonds. And that's about it for the Public Building Authority. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. Okay, we'll start with Ron.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm curious, there have been no recent bonds issued at all by them?
No.
Do you know when the last bonds were issued?
It was 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Okay. And you say they have a non-paid board. What about the director?
They don't have a director.
No
It's-
directors now? Okay.
No, they have 5 members on their board.
All right.
No paid staff, correct?
No paid staff?
No.
Okay, that's
No.
what I was curious about. Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Karen.
Any other questions from Lee?
Do they have to keep having an audit till it goes to 0, or is there a threshold down there where they would not have to have an audit anymore?
I'm not aware if there's a threshold. I can check on that, but
I wasn't either. I was just thinking when it gets so low, the cost versus the benefit, we'll still have to have the audit.
I understand. It's the state that mandates it.
I didn't know if it got so low, we might could get out of having an audit, because it's basically just a bank account.
It is.
They don't-
I
they
will
don't-
check, with the
That'd
state.
be good. No hurry. I just, eventually it's not gonna be, it's gonna be so low. It's just a little bit of fees coming in. The fees will decrease as the bonds decrease.
They will. They've already
Theoretically,
started.
eventually, they won't have enough fees to pay the audit.
That's
Well,
true.
5 or 10 years down the road, unless there's some new issues.
That's true.
Okay.
But I will check with the state and see if there's any possibility.
If there's a way out, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I don't see the need of having an audit when it gets to be so low. I mean, somebody could spend 5 minutes, look at the bank statements and be done, theoretically. So, I don't want to oversimplify. So, one other question not related to this. I know you're fixing to start auditing the schools here in the next little bit. Those audits will be complete by August 31st, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. So if we wanted to look at those audits in September, we should be able to look at,
yes.
okay. They give you a short window for those.
They do, but that's the state.
I guess,
They're required to be in by August 31st.
I guess they want them in before the next, theoretically, before the next school year
Well,
starts.
school starts, I think, August 1st,
Yeah, it
so,
does start early. Who knows? All right, I was just thinking ahead for our fall meetings, that, because that's when we could get pretty much right after it's issued.
yes,
And I'm sorry, that's a little off subject.
No, it's good.
I'll be quiet, go ahead.
that's okay.
That's perfectly fine. Does anyone else have any questions before I propose mine? Okay, this is kind of about all the audits that IOB does. Can you clarify a little bit more about how IOB, what your internal policy is on, does it go to committee, or what happens when you find a deficiency? And I know on the school board, you issue a very detailed list for us. We don't have any on these two audits. But in the event you do find deficiencies, who is it that helps determine if those are material weaknesses or any other layer that needs to be a part of the report? Is it a group, or is it an individual decision, or how does that work?
It could be both. It could be an individual or a group that was working on the audit.
Okay. And so is there a time you determine when it goes from an individual to a group decision?
Well, it would depend on what the deficiency was,
Then how severe it is?
how severe, if it was involving internal control, if it was involving money. It would just depend on what was involved.
Okay. Do you have, and you'll know where this is coming from, but I'm curious, I'm trying to educate myself on what the standard is among our auditing firms that are out there, especially the ones that are doing the county work. Let's say you found fraud. Is there a level where you don't report fraud?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
We would be required to call the state.
Okay. Okay. I'm looking here to see if I have any questions that haven't already been answered. Okay, my last question is, obviously, there's no employees, and there's not that much activity, so who handles the bookkeeping for?
They have officers, the treasurer,
Okay.
Sherry, and the bank statements come to the county.
What type of software do they use? Do you know offhand?
Pencil?
Pencil and paper, okay. Okay. Do you look at all the bank statements?
Yes.
It's pretty cut and dry on what you do. Okay. No further questions. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Who do they get sent to Randy or one of his people at the county? Is that who the bank statements come to?
They come somewhere up
Somewhere
here.
in the county? Do you get
Because-
them, Randy?
Yes.
Okay. Do you look at them?
We sent them the full, they're included in every month in the commissions.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Karen. Okay, the next item for us, we have no other further discussion outside of what Lee already alluded to. I need to wrap up on something that was supposed to be on our agenda, just to clarify for the whole committee. We were due to meet, we had requested Blount Memorial Hospital Foundation Board, one and the same for the hospital, to meet with us, and I have corresponded with Mr. Redwine in writing, and who is the chairman of their board, and also by phone, and he has declined to meet with us. Although I haven't seen the minutes from the last board meeting, took it to the board and asked them as a whole, and via his voicemail message to me, they do not feel it is in our authority to even be looking at what occurred at the fraud that occurred there at the hospital. And he did go on to say in his voicemail that if they did so entertain to meet with us at a future date, they would not want to do that until the TBI investigation was finalized. So I think we'll readdress that later on, because obviously, as we know from reading the newspapers and just keeping in touch on that the investigation is still underway and not closed out. So that's the reason that is not on the agenda at this time, and I'm going to open it up for Ron to...
I just have a question, Madam Chairman. Thank you. Can we have our our lawyer look at this and whose authority is it if it's not within our purview? Whose authority would it be in? And would it be kosher to ask our lawyer to take a look at that and see?
Yes.
See what?
Yes, Mr.
what
French, it
reads on
is.
Okay.
I'm already
Then
trying to take...
I'm going to request that then. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. I had already decided we would do something like that just to make sure, but knowing that we have a little bit more time on our hands until that, because it does make sense to wait till that investigation's further along. But we will pursue that and see what we need to do as a committee and if we can do anything. So that leads us to the next topic is, that will not be on our next agenda, but as Lee already made notice for us, we need to meet on the school board audit at a minimum, and then we'll have some more audits to look at this fall. So I think our next meeting will be in September, and I will work with Mr. Vineyard and his staff to see when we can coordinate with commission for our 2 commissioners that serve, and we will get that scheduled in the very near future. So there will not be another meeting until September for the audit committee. Do we have any further business that needs to be discussed at this time?
Okay, can I ask one more question of the mayor? Okay. Mr. Mayor, do you have any updates, information on the TBI investigation of the foundation situation?
The TBI has not contacted me, or the Attorney General's office has asked for a special prosecutor. They have not contacted me yet, so I have no idea where the investigation is at this time.
Any further questions, Lee?
No. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second? We need to vote on that, don't we? Okay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.